El Evangelio según Mateo, capítulo 5. Gloria a ti, oh Dios. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on the mountainside, and after he sat down and the disciples had gathered around, Jesus began to teach them. Blessed are those who are poor in spirit. The kingdom of heaven is theirs. Blessed are those who are mourning. They will be consoled. Blessed are those who are gentle. They will inherit the land. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for justice. They will have their fill. Blessed are those who show mercy to others. They will be shown mercy. Blessed are those whose hearts are clean. They will see God. Blessed are those who work for peace. They will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of their struggle for justice. The kingdom of heaven is theirs. You are fortunate when others insult you and persecute you and utter every kind of slander against you because of me. Be glad and rejoice, for your reward in heaven is great. They persecuted the prophets before you in the same way. You are the salt of the earth. But what if salt were to lose its flavor? How could you restore it? It would be fit for nothing but to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. You don't build a city on a hill, then try to hide it, do you? You don't light a lamp, then put it under a bushel basket, do you? No. You set it on a stand where it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, your light must shine before others, so that they may see your good acts and give praise to your Abba God in heaven. La palabra de Dios. Gracias a Dios. So begins the Sermon on the Mount. So we basically have one sermon and a lot of other teachings of Jesus. But if this one sermon is the only scripture we ever read, it would literally change everything. Brian McLaren, in this book that we're reading, We Make the Road by Walking, says that what Jesus is doing in this first sermon is to, quote, spur his hearers into reflection about who they are, who they want to be, and what kind of people they will become, what they want to make of their lives. He's speaking to people as individuals. They were coming from all different places and communities, but he's creating a community. So here we will reflect as a community. There's so much to unpack here in this brief scripture, but because this is Salt and Light Lutheran Church, how could we not go straight for the last 3 verses of this lesson? You are the salt of the earth. But what if salt were to lose its flavor? How could you restore it? It would be fit for nothing but be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. You don't build a city on a hill, then try to hide it, do you? You don't light a lamp, then put it under a bushel basket, do you? No, you set it on a stand where it gives light to all in the house. Brian McLaren elaborates on these verses a bit by saying, our choice is clear from the start. If we want to be Jesus' disciples, we won't be able to simply coast along and conform to the norms of our society. We must choose a different definition of well-being, a different model of success, a new identity with a new set of values. Jesus promises we will pay a price for making that choice. But he also promises we will discover many priceless rewards. As creative nonconformists, we will be difference makers, aliveness activists, catalysts for change. Like salt that brings out the best flavors in food, we will bring out the best in our community and society. Also, like salt, we will have a preservative function, opposing corruption and decay. Like light that penetrates and eradicates darkness, we will radiate health, goodness, and well-being. Simply by being who we are, living boldly and freely in this new identity as salt and light, we will make a difference as long as we don't lose our saltiness or try to hide our light. Now, we could go with both the salt and the light metaphor today, and your reflections, take them where you will, but I'm going to focus a little bit on salt to ask the questions for reflection today. So as long as we don't lose our saltiness, he says. So in that one short phrase, I see lie two key questions for the salt and light community to grapple with at this moment in your history. So the first question is this, and then we're going to go into one-to-ones quickly. So I'm going to give you a couple of questions. The first is this: what is the salt of salt and light from your perspective? What is the salty part of the character of salt and light, the part that brings out the best in our community and society? The part that opposes corruption and decay. What is that salty part? What are the salty practices? What are the salty perspectives? In your experience, from your perspective, what is the salt of salt and light? And perhaps the harder but more agitational second question is this: has the salt of this community lost its flavor? Lost its saltiness? And if so, how can it be restored? So what is the salt from your perspective, from your experience? What is the salt of salt and light? And has the community lost some of its saltiness? And if so, how can it be restored?
One of the things Debbie said I thought was interesting, an image. She said, well, like, it's maybe like we've been in the fog. We're not asleep, but like resting and waiting, and that now the saltiness is going to be more restored, like we were. Yeah, I mean, that was just really interesting. And so I guess, yeah, I'm kind of jumping to the end, but I think our culture, the culture that we've developed here, is really our saltiness. And in order for us to restore the saltiness, we need more of us in the mix and more new ideas and new saltiness. And so I think we were all hopeful and imagining new things that are coming.
Maybe you
Maybe
could.
Joe and Debbie want to say something.
Would you go ahead and invite somebody else, Nancy?
Jim and I were talking, and to me, I had to look at salt and light, and kind of look at what those two are. And because I was thinking, oh, our children, that's where the salt is, that's going to be our main seasoning. But when I thought about it, I thought, no, we adults are the salt and the children are the light. And Jim looked at it as the community. I think Nancy expressed it well. The community is our salt, the use of our building, the diversity we have. Jim, add if you think I didn't pass your thought on.
I was with Lois and Lorna, and we talked about salt being part of the organizing energy that we have. It's kind of in a good way, agitational. The salt. It's part of the being able to, get into a conversation and meet people and get to know them and all that. And I guess it's maybe the salt is that an adjective? I mean, in real life, of course, it's a noun, but in this discussion, is it an adjective? It's like something that is a part of somebody's personality, and also that the last 2 years is like we've been discouraged from being in personal relationships. Everybody's was afraid of getting sick. I think we're getting that from our leaders, the community leaders, and our politicians, and everybody was like social distance and wear a mask. And it's kind of hard to do a lot of relational things, especially at our church. It's been closed, basically. Coming back in a week or two, though.
So anyone else from Lonnie's group? Or Jim, I wanted to make sure that you had a chance to speak if you wanted to add anything to what Arvella said. All right, what other pairs or groups haven't shared yet?
There was the Harmons, Rasmussens, and Gilmore group. And then there was Daryl and Eric.
Well, I can share for our group of Reuben and Carol and Dick. Just from listening to the sharing, I came to the conclusion that, there's still a lot of saltiness around. And it's actually, I've been thinking since we talked, the things that I've witnessed where people are willing to get together in the rain and the cold and still have meetings outside, meet at coffee shops where there's a heater above, just to keep the spirit of, the relationships going, so that people could even still be in person. And even it's a testament that there are this many people on this Zoom call pulling people together who have the same goals in life and a lot of the same values. And the other, and Ruben gave everybody gave an example of what they've experienced as far as people reaching out to each other and making a difference. And the other day I heard Brent saying to Carol that we were talking about visiting her friends and that he wanted to be the driver so that she could go visit people who were important to her. And to me, that is really an example of being salty. And the fact that Augie wants to come to church. I mean, how many of us when we were little felt like we had to go because our parents, kind of dragged us there, and that he's excited about it. And I know that there's, once things open up more, there will be many more opportunities for people to be together in person. But I think that there's definitely been a lot of saltiness going on, and a lot of people who are committed to working on different committees for the church and for their communities and for the homeless, and how the community supports each other when there's, an illness or somebody's lost a family member or a loved one. I think there's a lot of that happening, and it really speaks powerfully for Levin. So that's what I would share.
Good.
Anything from Dave or the Mendenhalls? You don't have to, but if you want, we are opening the floor for you.
Hello. We had a good talk with Dave and talked about, well, Grace popped in for a minute and she summarized things nicely from my thoughts. And she said that acknowledging and going through struggles to help us do what is right was a key feature of our saltiness. And then said even further, the blood, sweat, and tears is our saltiness. I like the saltiness as a place to be seen and heard. In addition to that, a place to make action from and to be there for each other, and a place of diversity in ways that is not existent in the rest of my life. And in terms of age was brought up a lot in terms of the diversity side of it, the intergenerationalness. And where's our saltiness now? I don't know, Ben, do you have thoughts about that?
My personal experience of not knowing that the legacy walk was happening. I was realizing that I need to read the handouts more closely because I could get involved. I just don't know about it as easily. So it just takes a little bit more work, I think, on the individual side, because I would like to be there with, 20 different people walking through the legacy area, acknowledging what was going on, and doing that with a larger group of people. It seems like it's a smaller group of people still doing a fairly normal frequency of action.
Anything from Rita, Brent, or Allie, or anything from Daryl or Eric?
I think Dave Damke seemed like he was about to share.
Oh, okay.
Maybe Dave.
I'm not used to this, but I think I've seen a lot of change, and it's forced me to think. You know, I look back when Terry started and all the interns and stuff, which I think, to me, the interns that came made a big change, you know, and what they did, and allowed Terry to do some things. And I talked to Ryan Palmer yesterday, and he was talking about the different groups. We had interbeing, there was a men's group, there's a women's group, where we've had the chance to dialogue and talk. And I think that's essential. And I mentioned that when I was teaching at Adams, I came to church once at Redeemer and just didn't fit. So I left for about, say, 8 or 9 years, and then came back. And to me, it's the way I would like to see a lot of churches go, in both the community and the ability to deal with belief and allowing people the chance to express themselves. So I don't know if that makes much sense, but anyhow.
Mhm.
Yes, it does, Dave. Thanks for that.